episode of the Square and Compass podcast, this time with brother Barry Mann, all the way from sunny California. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So we met through a Masonic acquaintance of ours, who I'll leave a link to his video, brother Karp, of Karp Mediation Services, of Clarence Smith Daylight Lodge, and of his connection to one of his connections to you, and the reason that I have you on the podcast is he was the 2020 Hiram Award winner in the state of California, and you are 2021's winner. So congratulations to you for that.
Thank you very much. Complete surprise.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it was, but I'm also sure it was very well deserved. So last year, if I recall correctly, Brother Karp received his award virtually. Are you meeting again in California? Are you able to have an in-person award ceremony, or will you also be receiving it virtually?
We're scheduled for November 13th. It just depends on what the situation with the COVID is at that time.
And you mentioned it being a complete surprise. So tell me about that. How did you find out that you had won? What did you think, when you discovered that you had won? And just what does it mean to you to be a Hiram Award winner recipient?
Well, it was mentioned in a stated meeting, and I just was so surprised because I never in the world expected to be the one nominated. I am so honored. I still feel like there are plenty of people that deserve it before me, but I'll take it.
And did they talk at all about, when they announced it, some of the things that you've done in your Masonic career, as to why they selected you in particular this year for an award recipient?
Well, I was one of the first members of our lodge, the Clarence F. Smith Daylight Lodge, and I was the chaplain for a year or so, and then I moved into the treasurer position. So I've been treasurer for about 3 or 4 years.
And talk to me a little bit about your Masonic career, starting at the beginning. What was it about Freemasonry that made you interested in joining? Did family connections, friends? I guess what was your impetus to look into joining a lodge?
I had a grandfather who was very active in the Masons and the Scottish Rite. I didn't know a lot about it until after he passed away, and we inherited all his regalia and awards and things that made me start wondering about Masonry, and I decided to pursue it.
And did your grandfather, you said you learned about it when you inherited his regalia. So did your grandfather ever discuss Freemasonry, or even did your father talk about, having his father being Masonic? Was there ever any discussion about it in your family?
My grandfather was a member of the Beverly Hills Lodge, and he would tell me about some stories about some of the more famous members of the lodge who were actors and famous people, and telling me a little bit about the darker side of these individuals. But the rest of my family knew nothing about Masonry at all.
I think that's a pretty common thing. My father is a Mason. Both of my grandfathers were Masons. My dad described Freemasonry when he was growing up. He said it wasn't secretive per se. He said it was quiet. That makes sense. He said it was just a common part of life in the town. People would go to the lodge and they'd leave, but it wasn't. It's funny the way Freemasonry has changed so much from our grandparents, who perhaps weren't talking about it much outside of lodge, to we're having podcasts about it. I assume the award ceremony will be public. Just we have t-shirts with the square and compasses on them. Just what are your thoughts on kind of Freemasonry becoming a little bit more open and brethren discussing their involvement with the craft more regularly?
I think it's great. I think a lot more people would benefit from being members of the Masons. You know, it's such a great organization. There's so many people in my lodge whom I would never in a lifetime be friends with, because they're so different than my background and my friends. And I'm able to really get a chance to meet people out of my comfort zone, and it's been great.
Is that, you think, you described Freemasonry as a great organization? Um, is the people that you meet and the friendships you make, would you say that's the main thing that makes it great, or what are some of the things that make Freemasonry, in your opinion, a great organization?
Well, it's got to be the individuals. The members are, very honest and helpful. Any member that needs anything, all you have to do is ask one of your brothers, and they will give you the shirt off their back if they can. And it's just a great organization for meeting new people and getting to know people out of your comfort zone.
Now, you used the word comfort zone, or words comfort zone, a couple times now. Um, in a Masonic context, getting out of one's comfort zone. What do you mean by that? Does that have to do with meeting new people, but also, memorizing work and public speaking? Um, how does Freemasonry encourage people to get out of their comfort zones?
Well, I think, I have a group of friends that are all pretty much homogeneous, and the people that I meet in the lodge are anything but my normal group of friends. There are many people who are Filipino, that are Middle Eastern, and ethnicities and groups of people that I would never get to know other than being at lodge.
As a Hiram Award winner, or I guess soon to be Hiram Award winner, the ceremony's in November, as a Hiram Award winner, as a longtime Mason, chaplain, member of the Daylight Lodge, what advice would you have for individuals considering joining the craft, and also for Masons who are perhaps just starting their Masonic journey, or just about to start the Masonic journey, and just about to, be initiated?
The people that are Masons or soon to become Masons, I really encourage them to get involved, because you can't really get to know a lot of the lodge until you're looking from the inside out and getting to know a lot of the people that are active in the lodge. To be a sideliner and sit and watch some of uh, events going on is fine, but the more you become involved, the more you really become part of the organization. And for those people who uh, have not joined, I would recommend going to a lodge open house and getting to see what we do. It's a great organization. We do a lot of wonderful things to help everybody.
How would what about, um kind of, how, after the last year and a half, um Freemasonry Ontario has suspended in-person meetings since March of 2020. I know that, talking with Brother Karp, that a lot of Masonic activities, in-person events, were suspended in California for, I believe, over a year, year and a half, perhaps. How have you found it getting back into lodge and in-person events? And has there been any trepidation amongst the membership in California? Are you, wearing masks? Just what's it been like returning?
It was scary in the beginning. Everybody's wearing masks. That's the edict of our master and our inspector. So everybody has to be masked and socially distanced whenever possible. So, but it was it was hard getting used to coming back into lodge and being with people again. It was, we were hermits for over a year.
And how long have you been meeting in person again for?
About 3-4 months.
Have you found over the last 3 or 4 months that those nerves have subsided a bit and people are becoming more relaxed and getting back into a pattern? Or are you finding that the nerves have been remaining?
Well, we have a rule that everybody has to be vaccinated or has to have had a negative COVID test in the last 72 hours. So we're pretty sure that we're not going to spread COVID, but it's still uncomfortable to get used to it, and we're trying to keep our distance as much as we can.
Bringing up your position within Lodge, it's interesting. I'm just trying to think back. I have interviewed um, uh, a couple Masons who have been chaplains of a lodge, but I don't think I've ever really discussed with them that particular uh, office. So, for yourself, how would you what would you describe the role of the chaplain in a Masonic temple, in a Masonic lodge to be?
Well, basically opening, closing prayers are the main events, but also some of the activities within the lodge that require, like the perambulations, may need somebody to do the speaking parts, and it's basically more formal and ritual than anything else.
The the formal aspect of the chaplain's chair and formal and the ritual aspect of it, is that something that you find yourself drawn to in Freemasonry? There are some brethren who prefer the administrative functions, secretary, treasurer, some who find themselves more preferring the ritual side of it. Is ritual a preference of you in in your Masonic career?
No, actually, I got into it because there was an opening, and I was asked to become the chaplain, and I enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed the memorization of some of the things that you had to do, and memorization came easily to me, and so I just kind of got right into it.
Was that another example of you kind of stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit? And you said, you were asked to, which is how pretty much everybody finds themselves in a chair. And were you surprised to find that you enjoyed it? Was that another example of the benefits of going out of your comfort zone a little bit?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. I didn't know what to expect when I first started doing it, but I got into it and I very much enjoyed it.
And looking ahead, where um, do you see any challenges coming forward that Freemasonry is going to have to face? And how do you think we can deal with some of those challenges we may be facing?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that we're faced with is COVID. And, the hope is that eventually it'll die down and we can get back to business as usual. But I think our lodge in particular has had an influx of brand new people, so many that we are just inundated with new members and trying to get them all initiated. It's a good position to be in.
That's interesting. I have interviewed many Masons who have actually expressed trepidation and concern over the increased number of applicants that have been coming through lodges. Their arguments being, and they look back to the 1920s and 1950s, kind of the last two boom periods of the craft. And their argument is basically during those two time periods, we had rapid growth in membership, but lodges were not equipped to, properly mentor or give adequate attention to the new applicants. And so you saw a rapid increase followed by significant declines, especially in the 1950s. A lot of those applicants, maybe joined, but were difficult to find afterwards. John Bizak, a Masonic author, has written about this. I guess, um, how would you ensure that lodges not only bring applicants in, but also lodges ensure that those applicants receive adequate support and mentorship throughout their Masonic career, especially, as they go through their degrees and begin in perhaps officer positions?
Well, we're trying to do a buddy system so that every new applicant will have one friend from the lodge who will help them learn their memorization and explain to them the process that they'll be going through. So we try to keep that mentoring program going so that nobody feels lost and not able to have somebody to help them out when they have questions or problems.
And the other concern I have about uh, membership, and it's hard to say. I think ultimately, Freemasonry does need more members, probably in every jurisdiction, significantly more. I don't know how, it survives without an increase in membership. Having said that, I do think brethren such as John Bizak have a good point. The other thing they bring up is, increasing membership it was often a way to perhaps paper over uh, problems in a lodge. So, you can have administrative problems or, um, uh, the lodge isn't doing well in ritual work or whatever it is. But so long as your membership numbers are going up, you could point to that and say we're successful and not deal with some other problems. So I guess, going back to this idea, how do you make sure that a lodge is devoting sufficient time to its applicants and its new members, but also devoting sufficient time to the other areas of the craft, ritual work, charitable work, administrative work? How does a lodge find that balance?
It's difficult. The first lodge I belonged to was a Hollywood Lodge, Hollywood, California. And we had a membership of maybe 150 or 200 members, most of whom were not active. And it was a difficult situation because we never seemed to have enough people to help out at some of the activities. But they were there for the social activities, but not any of the ritual work. So it's if you get too big, it's hard to keep people involved. It's nice to have a small membership where you can keep everybody involved and everybody is always communicating with each other.
And how do you? I'm a secretary of my affiliated lodge, secretary of Harmony 579. That communication has been um, a challenge, especially during COVID. How important is it, and how can lodges maintain communication with their membership, especially perhaps those older brethren who have a hard time making it out, or brothers who travel and can't be at lodge? What are some ways that you can maintain your membership communication?
Well, again, the important thing is to have like a buddy system or a group of friends that get together either in lodge or outside of lodge to keep their activities, to keep their membership active. So the best thing to do is to just be able to have members that are always communicating with either the active members or the ones that are not active.
Going back to your Hiram Award, what are some of the things that you are most proud of in your Masonic career that you look back on with pride, and which you think perhaps contributed or could have contributed to your receiving the award?
Well, I started out in the Hollywood Lodge as the chaplain, and then they had a position of building manager that was needed, so I became president of the building association. Then I got a call from Granada Hills Lodge, which was like 5 miles from my house. They needed a building manager also, so I moved over there. That was one of the things that really attracted me to the Masons was maintaining and helping with the building. And then eventually I found my way to the Daylight Lodge, which was great because I was tired of the evening meetings and it was nice to be able to have a Saturday morning meeting. And I really enjoyed the camaraderie and the activities. So I just enjoy Masonry a lot.
The building, that is something I've been really focusing on lately with Square and Compass is our buildings. So many of them are heritage structures. So many Masonic buildings have been lost, unfortunately, either sold or just in some cases abandoned. There's buildings in Alabama, for example. How important is it? Why do you think it's important that Freemasons not only take care of its membership, but also take care of its temples and its buildings?
Well, what's happening in California now is many of the lodges are property rich and cash poor. Many of these lodges have been around for 100 years or more, and the membership is slowly declining, especially in the Central California area, where every small town had their own Masonic lodge. And but these buildings are really historic buildings, and they should be maintained either by the Masons or maybe the local community would take them over.
And when a local community, for example, in some cases, takes a Masonic temple or a Masonic building over, how important is it, do you think, that the Masonic attributes or history of the building, if at all possible, be preserved, and discussed? I think of, for example, Oriental. It's not called that anymore. I can't think of the name of it now. The former Oriental Theater in Chicago, in the downtown Chicago, was originally a Masonic temple. And when you look up its history, when you get information about it, even the building itself, it always references its Masonic history and origins, and the Masonic symbolism still on the facade. So, how important is it, or how can communities, if they take over one of these buildings, still respect its heritage and its origins as a Masonic building?
Well, I think the local community, whatever it may be, should be able to put up a plaque or something, or give guided tours, or in some way, let the local community know about the heritage of these buildings. Some have just been lost to decline, and I've been to some of these older buildings that are no longer Masonic buildings, but are maintained by the local community, and they have recreated the lodges just as they were 100 years ago. It's really fun to go through some of these things as a museum.
Yeah, Fort Edmonton, we have one here. A lot of Masonic temples find second lives as Masonic museums type of thing, which is a really, really very cool thing. What are some of the temples or Masonic buildings that you've had the chance to visit that really stick out in your mind?
The old Highway 49, which was the Gold Rush highway, every little town had a Masonic lodge, And many of them have been turned into museums to where people can go through. There are cemeteries and museums throughout these old gold rush towns that are fun to be able to walk through and see the old Masonic building as it used to be. It's really kind of fun.
And sorry, where was that located? And
It's Highway 49. It's the old gold rush uh, road that used to go through all these different communities that were big during the gold rush, the 1849s.
I didn't know California had a gold rush. I thought gold rush was all in like Yukon and the northern part of Canada. I didn't know you had it down there.
Oh no, that's how California got started. If it wasn't for that, we'd still be a backward country.
Really? So was gold like how did that work? Was gold just discovered by somebody in California and then the word spread? Like were people coming in from is that where like the go west young man type of wagon trails and
Yeah.
stuff?
Gold was discovered in 1849 in California near Sacramento, which is the state capital. And people came from all over the country to see if they could make their fortune in the gold mines. Of course, most of them didn't. And but the people ended up staying here and building communities all over the West Coast.
So was that all? Was the gold rush all along the west coast then, from like California to Yukon, Alaska, or was it
No, it was
primarily
pretty
local?
much in the Sacramento area. But people moved to San Francisco and moved to San Diego, and once they either made it rich or lost all their money and had to start all over, they went to the big cities.
It's fascinating how so much of Masonic history is a group of people move somewhere for some reason. It could be a gold rush in this case, could be a military base, could be in Windsor, railroad workers, because this was the end of the line for the Great Western Track. And then, the Masonic lodges and Masonic temples follow afterwards. Um, so I'm curious then, are a lot of Masonic temples in California or Masonic lodges, do they have like names related to the gold rush, related to gold mines?
No, most of them are related to the town in which they were founded.
Okay, so um is there like a San Diego lodge or a Sacramento lodge?
Right. Yes. In San Francisco, there are a few of them. Sacramento and Los Angeles, there are a number of them, depending on which community. No, most of them, we have many hundreds of lodges throughout California, mostly named for the town in which they were founded.
Neat. That's very cool. In Windsor. So like our original lodge in Windsor, Ontario is Great Western Lodge because it's named after the railway that came, the railroad line that was through here. A lot of workers formed their own Masonic lodge. Um, what would you say outside of November 13th and your um, awards ceremony, which I'm sure you're looking forward to? What are you most looking forward to in the coming months and years within the craft?
Well, the first thing is I'm retiring as treasurer this year of the lodge. I'm going to let somebody else take over for a while, and I'll be kind of a man of many trades to do whatever is necessary in the lodge. I want to mentor some of the newer members, and I'll just take over whenever they need somebody, either as chaplain or one of the other positions. I'm happy to fill in, but it'll be nice to be able to sit on the sidelines and not have to wear a tuxedo occasionally.
I know many brethren who feel the same way, and very much look forward to sitting on the sidelines. Um, and we mentioned, we met through Brother Karp, previous Hiram Award recipient, and he's done a lot of work with his virtual get-togethers, which we all log into. During the last year and a half, how often were you involved in virtual Masonic events and Zoom meetings, and how did you find them? Um, did you enjoy them? Do you think that they're here to stay, even once we're in person, even once we're all meeting in person again? Just what do you think about the virtual side of the craft?
Well, I tuned in every stated meeting for the lodge meeting and do whatever business we could do. And then we had a monthly or a weekly get together of the members Thursday nights just to gab and see how everybody's doing and stay in touch. And that was fun. We used to go to a restaurant and sit around and talk the breeze and have snacks and things, and that was always fun. But I'm really looking forward to being able to do more things in person and less things online.
I agree. Uh, in person is always preferable, but the online world did bring some advantages, such as this, right? The ability to meet brothers from, not that I would have loved to get to visit you in person and visit California in person, but for now, Zoom and um, Brother Karp's Fellowship will have to do. But I do very much appreciate you taking the time to appear on the podcast. Um, oh, Brother Karp was mentioning it. So I don't know how involved you are with it, but you guys have an open house coming up, if I recall correctly. Can you
We do
talk a
in
bit about
September, yes.
can you talk a bit about that and how that's going? And for any California brethren watching this, how they can, or anybody from California interested in Freemasonry, how they can take part?
Well, anybody that may have a friend who uh, is in the Southern California area that would like to learn a little bit more about Freemasonry, we have an open house coming up in September. And you can look on the Clarence F. Smith Facebook page to see the date. I don't recall the date offhand, but yeah, we the last time we had one, which was a year and a half ago, we had like 17 prospects, and I think we got 5 or 6 new members out of it. So there is a definite interest in Freemasonry coming up.
That is great to hear. I'll throw the website in the description to this video. And Brother Mann, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me all the way from sunny California.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.